my curiosity is also like, what would you say is like the leadership skills that's required if we're moving from the predictable to the generative?
Vulnerability primarily,
Mm.
and
Uh,
being in the here and now,
mm.
and listening to what's required,
And
what
when
you're
you,
called for. Yeah.
yeah, exactly what you call for. And when there comes up like two things for me. It's like one of them is when you name vulnerability, it's multi-layered in a way for me. So I'm curious of where your gravity point or what you're pointing towards, like when you name vulnerability. And also listening is also multi-layered. We can listen in so many different ways. Because if I would name it, I would say there is like a skill of deeply listening. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would say to source,
Mm-hmm.
but and that is
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
yeah in every single step.
Yeah. And the vulnerability I'm referring to is like an openness
Mm, yeah,
to do that,
yeah,
um, and to know when to close yourself.
yeah. Say more about that.
So to be so sensitive that you know when to be open and when not to be open.
Yeah, I could say like right here is somewhere where I can, if I would speak into the space between us and the dialogue, Peter, I would say here for me, I can notice aliveness because I also can see that here there is a point where like an edge where people could benefit from travel that edge with us to truly understand what does that truly mean because most people today in like in openness have practiced to be open and bringing the multiple perspectives and so on and still have a sense of like a practice or weakness around when it's time to set boundaries, when it's time to say this is allowed here, this is not.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I can notice like a creative tension of a deeper curiosity coming up right here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I would say our capacity to listen deeply is directly correlated to our capacity to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone would say, can you make a concrete example when I am as a leader or yeah, navigating the system we live in, like how could that look like?
That I would turn to you when I'm source of something, and I'd say to you, Pamela, what I want you to know is the way we do things around here. The way we do things around here is we do them my way, or we don't do them at all.
I am I'm just now reading. I don't know if you have reading the Machiavelli. I don't know how to say that in
Machiavelli, yeah, I've
yes.
never read that. Yeah.
No, but I got it for Christmas and I'm actually
Uh,
enjoying it. But it's like you speaking into like one core thing in the start of because in a way you can say it's like it's all about leadership. But he's speaking into the fact that uh, a leader who wants to be able to hold his power, and there is no like value if power is good or bad. It's just if you want to hold your power, um, then you have to be fully willing to be good when good needs to be done, and to be evil when evil needs to be done, and knowing exactly when the right timing is for it. Yeah.
and then there's no distinction between the two of them at that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
What comes to me, because here I feel like we're coming to this, yeah, the sword of the and the capacity to be ruthless, and something we were talking with Alex actually, Peter, um, and and I think that this requires also the trust and the support of the feminine in trusting the masculine when it brings this kind of separation in a life-serving way.
This is why I mentioned the word vulnerability, because this is not being performed as an action of defense or even attack. It's just an act of clarity, responding to a calling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I would love just like what's coming alive here in the conversation, Peter. I would really love to if that's what's there, like, because I'm very willing to dialogue with you in emergence, because I think that's what's, yeah, where we both want to be. So I don't like to have too much like pre-planned before we are sitting there. I love to have a direction, and I love to have a time frame, and I love to know that we both are comfortable with dialoguing from a deeper place together, and I know we are, both of us. And I can notice here what comes alive here. It's really these edges that I find that the people that I'm supporting that do, for example, source work and are source keepers, and where they still in their own leadership and they're in their generative leadership, what they have challenges around having this kind of like act of clarity that you just described that can be interpreted as aggressive, immature masculine, like whatever name, they very often lack it. But it's so, I can see it's so vital right now that we have spaces to explore, and wise people who can hold it in an elegant way when we're having the conversations. People actually can be challenged in this in the most beautiful way. Yeah.
Do you feel it's the same with that woman has a challenge, the same challenge as man in this context?
My perspective on it as a man is that many women in leadership are trying to compete with the masculine, where they will never be able to win with men. Whereas if they are able to protect themselves well with their masculine, then their feminine can really show itself, and there the men will just melt. So the challenge for women in that sense is a different challenge. If they try to compete with the masculine, they're not playing in with their strength. But they do need the masculine. Certainly, first, I believe, to know that, to feel well in their skin, and feel well enough protected so that they can then open themselves totally to their feminine. That's the way I would describe it, or try and is that good?
Yes, it's very graceful. I love it. I don't know if I would name it any different. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, good. It's very nice for me to hear that.
Yeah.
That confirmation.
Yeah. And my response, Tim, is that if I look at like my own experience, I mostly supported men in this role. So in that way, I can't, like, from my own like wisdom around it, say, and I've mostly supported women to find their way back into their feminine leadership position, and from that space coming into clearer boundaries, and the first thing they really need to get in place is a stronger connection to self, like their authentic self, by understanding their own needs, their own boundaries, their own desires. And the desires is really important because that's where they deeply connect with the feminine, and by that can connect to source, even if you've never heard about source before. But it can go, or I would also say with Eros, like life force energy. Then when they do, they almost take a quantum leap when it comes to be able to be attuned to the aliveness in the room, to be attuned to what is the right next step to do in the organization or in the team. Where should I guide them? And because then they are connected to their strength of reading the field and the relational field, and being in attunement and lead from aliveness.
Mm-hmm. But they do need first to know how to protect themselves well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they can't open themselves fully to that. They need to be able to say to a man or to anyone, "Don't fuck with me." They need to be able to. They need to be able to say that and get it across. And then they can say, "Please fuck me." But first of all, they need to be able to say, "Don't fuck with me," when they mean it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I say building a strong connecting to self, with boundaries.
Yeah, I get it.
It's part of it. Yeah. Yeah, but it's actually that polarity that Peter speaks into. Like it's edgy, like and maybe it will be there on the event or not. Like I'm fully willing to go there. But actually this polarity, like don't fuck with me or fuck off and fuck me. Because the fuck me is actually allowing yourself to be in aliveness, like
Yeah,
allowing yourself to be fully in connection with life force energy and being in that seductive, in that radiant you,
yeah,
because then the masculine wants to serve life. Because
absolutely.
yeah, but if you're still afraid of the like really the sexual energy of grabbing or like you that you don't have the boundaries, you don't have the full capacity to walk radiant into life.
Yeah,
So there's like a really, and then we come into this like that's another edge that I see in leadership and organizations is like how can we allow that flirtation, like that spark of attraction to be alive between men and women when we're collaborating without making it sexual and still acknowledge it is sexual because it's creative and it's a creative tension and it's like a intense potential for a deeper source of creativity. And what do we need to unlock in these times if not that?
yeah.
But then we need to like dare to say what you just said, Peter. I'm very grateful. Like I know it's like a touch in my heart, a gratitude of you daring to say that. So thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It comes from experience.
Mm.
It comes from experience of being with too many women, you know, who aren't in that space yet, and it's really painful for a man because what happens is that the woman becomes flirtatious and seductive, and immediately the man approaches that to beyond us to a certain point, the woman suddenly turns around and pushes away because they don't feel safe enough. They don't know how to say no, really. So the unconscious is saying no and pushing the man away. And actually, that's painful for both. It's painful for the woman and painful for the man because the woman's not getting what she wants either. Neither are getting really what they want. And one sees an awful lot of that around. And of course, it's reflected then in organizational processes identically.
Can you say more about that?
It's like being attracted in with your power, but then if you say, "Oh yes, I'm here with my power," then you get pushed back.
Mm.
So you know there's this cry for everybody to be innovative in companies at the moment, but you know the people crying for others to be innovative. If you really are innovative and creative, do they really want that, or how far can you go before they will push you back or push you out because you're being a nuisance?
I love how you say that they don't know how to say no. I would say for the man is that they're not attuned anymore. And this is why the whole consent culture came, is because we lost this sensitivity to each other.
It's also not understanding the women or where they are. It's like complete misunderstanding between the sexes. Like a woman will say to a man, "I can't feel you," and is not aware that 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 expression has no meaning for a man. I can't understand what that means until he gets deeper into understanding women. You know, every woman can understand that what's meant by I can't feel you. But very few men can understand what a woman is after when she says that.
Do you think that the misunderstanding between the sexes, even if we take two mature man and woman, that the man has capacity of sensing presence and being present, and do you think that this misunderstanding is actually generative? That the fact that men and women eventually will never fully understand each other is actually a positive force?
You know, you've posed a very interesting question, whether we can really understand each other so deeply, which I would like to think maybe we can, and maybe the fact that we don't is more cultural than anything else, the way we've been educated. At least I would like to think that we do have this capacity to understand ourselves, each other deeply, but maybe there is a, our biology is at a certain point makes it not possible to go so deeply. I mean, we men will never have the experience of being pregnant, with a baby inside us and what it means to be a mother.
Yeah, I found myself right now that I'm sitting with a perspective that I think we need to have a deep acknowledgement that we are very different.
Mm.
And in that we do not fully understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
For start beginning to perhaps be able to fully understand each other.
Mm.
But if I look at the postmodern society right now, we are jumping over that quite on ideological level quite intensely. Mm. And there I don't see we can find a different kind of gender story or a sex or a slash gender story. So I do think there is something wise to truly acknowledge the difference, and that out of that we do not fully understand each other. To be able to travel and journey and learn and move towards that we possibly can do, can deeply understand each other. Because we're humans, we have the capacity to put ourselves in other people's shoes because we have mirror neurons, we have empathy, we have compassion, and we have like a learning identity and possibility to create meaning. I think that's where I
think I'd agree with you, Pamela, totally, ultimately. But I think to a certain point, there's a lot more we can understand than is generally understood in postmodern society that you're pointing to.
Yeah.
And which is not understood and not even tried. There's no effort even to try and understand.
Why do you say so? There's no efforts to try to understand each other?
Because there's an assumption that we know, or that I know how women work. I know how it works. I know how they work. So there's an assumption already there that, I know everything about women, and women assume they know everything about men, and there we go. That's there's no need to inquire even, or there's no feeling of aspiration to inquire further.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
Which starts with vulnerability.
I receive a little bit back to the beginning of the conversation when I asked you about what skills is required. I would like to listen in, Peter, to your perspective around if I would just give you a short, like a definition of Eros, like Eros for me is life force energy and energy. It's like also sexual energy and creative energy. But it's not it's tangled but not directly the same thing as primal sexual energy that you use when you're like creating a baby. But it's still a part of that energy. Just to give you a little bit of frame so you know where I'm coming from when I say Eros. And so if you would say that Eros is life force energy, I see it as an evolutionary force, a principle that has principles that works in a certain way that moves and fuels the evolution in the whole universe. Like, what distinction do you do between source and Eros?
Well, to be clear, when I use the word source, I've given it from my work, I've given it a very limited definition. So where I've been coming from is to use it as a mentor of mine used it, was just as an alternative word for founder. So that you need to know that's where I've been coming from. I just use it as an alternative expression for the word founder, which I felt was more which I liked because I felt it was more expressive of what a founder does actually. Gives a more rounded description in terms of a name or a word.
Mm-hmm.
But then I do talk about, a source person. Source as a source person is connected to the source, with some kind of universal energy from which they receive a vision which is extremely personal and unique to them and to what they are to materialize. And, if it's pure and if it's clear. And there, I haven't really done any thinking about the connection between that and what you call Eros. I haven't given it really, to be honest, I haven't really given it thought of that particular connection, but I do understand what you're talking about, of course.
For me, I've been sourcing like several projects. So in my experience, it's like if I would name it like this in a very maybe concrete way, is that it's almost like I connect to something that's beyond myself, and in that place of connection, I receive a vision of something that wants to be birthed. That wants to be birthed is not of me, but through me, but still deeply connected to me. And it is a life form, like an entity of itself. So it's a potential. That potential starts as more that I speak to it or listen to it or relate to it. It comes more and more alive. So as a source keeper, it's like I have a navel cord that goes directly into that. So it's like it's a channel. So I can listen and I can receive guidance and information and what's the right decision, not the right decision. And I can notice when it gets like really a full stop, if we're coming out of alignment, and where I as a source, like it can look as a controlling act from the outside, but it's really just a very protective act. And the more the source comes alive and I respond to it, the more I can feel it, see it, and the communication gets more. And then depending on if it's a small or bigger project, people can step in. And it's very often very clear when I meet someone, because I can sense that same energy in that person, or that it's connected, that there is a resonance. So that's like, if I just like shortly try to define my relationship with source and being a source keeper. And then if I would say with Eros, my relationship is quite the same, but it's still different, because it's like Eros is everywhere in everything, like everything that's alive. And I choose as my daily practice to connect to Eros, to that evolutionary force, to listen deep enough and to have space enough to be empty, and or maybe, as you could say, vulnerable enough to be attentive and attuned. And so maybe I would see that Eros is a universal force, bigger and greater, but they're still very connected. So it's more like an Eros is guiding me in life in general. Like, should I go right? Should I go left? Like, should I eat this? Should I not eat this? I can ask it for anything, because what it does is it supports me to become more alive. But it also aligns me to be a creator and co-creator of that evolutionary force itself. Like, yeah. That's the closest I come for now, for not taking like more time.
So Eros is like the universal energy for you, which I sometimes just refer to as universe. Other people call it God or something like that. Yeah. So I'm totally with you on that too. Yeah.
When I pray, and right now I'm in I've just set like a new practice for myself. So I pray twice a day right now and done that for a week. It's like, and I can notice like for me, the relationship with God or whatever we want to name it, it's a different energy than Eros energy.
Okay.
It is slightly different. Eros is a part of the God energy, but it's slightly different. It's the same as
Okay.
agape for me. Like agape and Eros are two different energies. Like agape is it's coherence for me. It feels differently. It opens my heart in a different like agape comes in and open my spiritual heart, and it goes through me, and it creates warmth, and it brings in coherence. Like if I do intersubjective dialogues and group settings and stuff. So it opens the space and it glues the space. But Eros comes underneath, like from Earth. It comes through my womb space. It goes up. It can enliven my whole body, but it is like from down and up. And then if I go to the sacred or God or like, it's just more and warm. And you know it's hard when you go in, because this is just my attunement and my body's vessel interpreting. But yeah,
So is Eros for you sort of part of agape? Just to be try and
say again.
Eros
is
is
it
part of agape.
is it is agape like the whole and Eros one aspect of agape for you? Or are they two distinct energies, if you like?
Right now, where I'm, if you would ask me several years ago, I would say agape have it all, but that's not where I'm at right now. For me, they are two different energies working the spaces that I work with in different ways. Like agape creates coherence, Eros creates, it's a creative spark that comes in, and it comes with something, a newness, like and it enlivens, and like it brings the creativity in a different way than agape does. Agape is very nice. You can swim in it for a long time. There's not so much movement, I would say. Eros is movement. But for me, when Eros blends into the heart space, when it comes down under and blends into the heart space and into the space, what I've noticed and happening both like personally, but because this is just an instrument, but in the group field, is the sacredness comes in. So there is like a depth that takes to a sense of sacredness. Yeah.
And the sacredness is not in the same in agape for you?
I can't name agape without having a deep sense of sacredness. And I can't name Eros without having a deep sense of sacredness. But I think I'm more naming an alchemy process that happens with these different forces when I'm working with them in spaces. I think that's more to create some clarity in what I'm referring to. Yeah.
And just Pamela, you were saying that it comes from the womb. Eros comes from the womb to the heart, and then it can be alchemized in agape, right?
It comes from, it alchemizes with agape and becomes because the whole movement that comes in that is a very like, my body, when it follows that energy, it wants to bow. It comes this like deep felt sense of reverence, and there is a space comes from it comes from outside. It doesn't start in my womb space, but it like that's where
well, it's the second chakra,
yeah, exactly.
So all new projects, all things, they always come from that second chakra. That's clear. So yeah, I agree. That's where I'm with you with the Eros. Totally. That's the starting point of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also why I see like an importance of when we are like where we have the spaces where it is possible to bring, as you did before, Peter, early in the meeting, when you said like, yes, to be able to say fuck off, to say fuck me, like, because if we haven't as leaders worked with our sexuality, we are not able to clearly listen either when we get these pure impulses from the second chakra of like pure creativity or a project, and having that space purified, we can also have receive the creation for what it really and truly wants to become. Yeah, and that's what I see when I hold the intersubjective dialogues, that people hasn't worked with their sexuality. They block Eros when it comes. They numb it out or deny that energy is in the room, and even so then we very often can stall like the whole conversation or the birthing of the creation because we can't hold the Eros energy.
Yeah.
Would you say that what is the role of the physical bodies? This is a conversation we already had. But you often talk about your inner compass and how it's connected to your warm space. And how does it translate regarding male and female bodies? Like, how does the creation process happens within a body, a male body, without a warm space? Is it the same second chakra, pelvis?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But
absolutely.
So is there a different approach for male and female to source projects? Because, yeah, or is it the same?
Difficult to say, but I would just refer it to the second chakra. And that's where I feel we're totally aligned. That's where the birthing comes from, the initial impulse comes from.
Because if there's a difference, and that women, thanks to their womb and their life creation powers that men do not have, this could justify that a woman take a specific place in either creation processes of companies, projects, either in guiding the tribes because they receive different kind of informations. And it would basically mean what is the role of the priest and what is the role of the priestess? Like,
well, I think there's evidence for that. Even I remember Bernard Lietaer telling me around when we met in the United States, the first time we met, telling me that the United States Constitution or something was the founding of the United States was women. I remember him telling me, I can't remember all the details he told me, but that it was actually a matriarchal impulse.
we talk about Marie-Madeleine also.
Of course, yeah.
What's your perspective on her, Peter? Can I have her three quick ones?
She's the founder of Christianity.
Yeah.
She's the source of Christianity. Jesus was a good operator. Number two.
I can notice I'm very happy to meet you, Peter. Thank you. This is a very beautiful and valuable moment. Thank you.
I'm still curious about what does it mean in terms of the role we take in leadership, in organization, in teams, in communities, male and female, like, yeah, how does this dance can evolve today? Maybe it's important to precise, Peter, that this event, I think I shared with you, is also laying the foundations of what we want to do as in the Genesis Leadership Program, which is really about supporting in priority couples that have both babies and regenerative projects. And it's like, can they switch between the different contexts and what role the male and the female should have? Are we going towards prescribing specific roles for like females that they should have?
What I've done, and this is probably a more of a feminine approach in terms of let's call them organizations, is not to prescribe. but to allow the people, whether they're men or women, to define their own roles, ideally.
Yeah.
In other words, what we're used to in organizations is director of marketing, director of sales, director of technology, a director of this, CEO of that, etc. Prescribed, all prescribed, and then to recruit them, to recruit people to try and fit these boxes. And I feel that that's old hat. So, so the process I've always been using for years is not to recruit in that sense, but to just to continue the process that you started describing, Pamela. In other words, just to resource, see who's attracted, and then ask them what they want to do, and what they'd love to do in terms of their vision, their role, and their role as source, or in my language, subsource. And of course, it's not perfect because everybody's in a developmental process, but actually the managerial role, if you like, or directorship role is totally different then. It's about helping people to come into their source roles as much as possible, and then to give those roles the definitions themselves. So in that sense, the whole notion of prescription, which you're describing here, for me would be like going backwards, trying to prescribe, what's male, what's female, and then trying to fit people into particular boxes according to whether they're male or female, or whether they should be masculine or feminine.
And I'm wondering if there's not some kind of like postmodern thought that is sneaking in, because obviously it's not, yeah, the men are going to do this and the women are going to do that, and we're going to be stuck in this, or hey, you do whatever you want. But is there maybe like a middle way where we could orient people like in function of their physical and body sensing capacities, which um, I believe are different between the male and the female body?
What do you think, Pamela? Great.
Yeah,
So nice to meet you, Pamela. I'm looking forward to meet you in person.
yeah, likewise. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very, very much looking forward.